In 99 Nights in the Forest, we are told to survive and protect the base. But what if I told you that the most important clue to this entire story and all the lore is actually hidden inside of a plane crash? It's not just a random wreck. It's not just a random background detail. This plane crash might explain why the deer exists, what actually are the kids and where they came from, and what the devs are planning to do next. And the craziest part, you probably walked by this building 100 times already. Let me show you exactly what this plane crash means and why it means way more than you think. On May 1st of 2023, a real-life Cessna plane fell out of the sky onto the jungle below. Now what's scary is that this exact story is likely what is the base model of the actual 99 Nights in the Forest game. Because in this story, there were 4 main survivors from this crash. And as you expected, it was the 4 kids in the story. Those 4 very same kids are the exact same kids that actually survived the actual plane crash. And in this actual plane crash, there was also a mother that was there, and the mother died shortly after. But this mother is likely to become the deer in the actual game, or what is theorized to be the deer in the actual game. Now, in this, you notice how there was a plane crash that happened in the real life story? Yeah, well, with this plane crash, you also noticed that there were a couple of buildings around the actual game with this exact same plane crash. And this plane crash would also explain how the kids actually got onto the forest area anyways, because this is likely to be a zone that not many people go out and explore. Because if we take a look at the logs, you can see that this was a park, right? There's a bunch of ranger logs and other logs in people's houses. Instead of this was a park, and that you normally go here to hunt, and it's not really a place for children to be at. So why exactly are the children here, and why would a mother take her children here? It's because they arrived here accidentally through a plane crash. If you take a look at the actual layout of this exact building and the plane crash, you'll notice a couple of things. There's some scattered what looks like crates or supplies around, which is also some chests, and obviously there's going to be things like fuel canisters or bolts near it, which you can actually use. And also these things hint to actual technology inside of this plane, which shows that it's an actual real life plane and it's not just something that someone randomly built by accident. And if you take a look at all the other buildings in the area, you'll notice a common pattern amongst them. For example, you have the well, you have some random stone walls. These things are things that people normally use, right? You don't have to be in the modern day to use them. You can be a person from 200, 300 years ago and you still be using these stone wells. But the only thing that separates this plain building from the other buildings is that this one actually requires intelligence to build. For example, you have the barn. The barn, you can have barns from like 200 years ago, right? Barns exist 200 years ago. But now, planes have only existed in the most recent century, or most commonly in the most recent few decades. Therefore, to have a plane crash out in the middle of nowhere, that obviously signifies that there's been some level of high intelligence activity happening here, and that there's some modern people that are here and actually trying to go ahead and fly by this place, or actually fly to this place. Now, also, you get to notice that there's a bunch of cultists that are around the area, and these cultists aren't here for show, because these cultists are the actual only intelligible creatures that are in the area aside from the deer. Now, we know that the deer has intelligence because from many cutscenes we can tell that the deer is able to go ahead and do things that a normal animal would not be able to do and a normal deer would not be able to do. For example, in the cutscene at 99 days, the deer appears to reach out and grab the humans at the actual campfire, which signifies how much the deer wants to go ahead and actually take the people at the campfire. Now, I don't know why the deer is freaky like that, but the deer just does that. And also, when the deer goes back into its little stone cave hideout at the 99 days cutscene, we do notice that the deer takes one final look back behind him, or her to know what is actually, trying to regret her decisions. Now, the thing is that a creature without intelligence, such as a regular deer, wouldn't have the mental capacity to actually look behind and do a double check. But this deer is able to do that. And also, if you check the posters, you can figure out how exactly the deer is able to kidnap each fourth child. And you can figure out that the deer actually has a lot of intelligence to be able to pull this off. For example, the dino kid was just minding his own business in the forest when a deer came up behind him and just straight up took him. And the kraken kid was just, kicking his feet in the water. And then the deer came up out of the water, jump scared him, and took him as well. Now, for the deer to be able to hold its breath like that and understand that if the deer makes a lot of sharp movements in the water, then she'll be spotted. To have this intelligence, it proves that she is obviously not a regular deer. And with the squid kid was going outside exploring, probably searching for the other two kids, when the squid kid got crept up on from behind and got taken away as well. And lastly, with the koala kid has tears in her eyes, so she appears to be running away from something, which is most likely going to be the deer. And while she's running, she got snuck up on as with everybody else, and she got taken away and taken as well. Now, what we can learn from all of these different examples is that the deer doesn't actually want to go ahead and harm these kids, because with you're in the forest by yourself, and you're just, minding your own business, chopping down trees, making up fire, and the deer really wants to hurt you. The deer is chasing after you, using the deer's claws to scratch you, but with these kids, the kids aren't being attacked at all. They're being scared because the deer is very big and scary, but the deer is just trying to keep these kids safe by putting them in these dens. And also, in these dens, you notice that there's a bunch of animals surrounding it with collars. That means that these animals are most likely tamed creatures, and they're not going to actually harm the kids. Now, the cultists might also defend one of the kids in the future, because as we notice, there's only around 4 tents at the base, and there could be a 5th kid because there is a noticeable gap between some of the tents. Therefore, there could be a 5th kid, and the 5th kid might be protected by cultists or might be protected by some even better creatures that are even stronger than the bears. But either way, there may be some, future lore that happens into the game. Now, let's relate this all back to the actual plane. What does this plane have to do? Well, this plane basically signifies that this game is actually based off of a real-life story. If this plane didn't exist, then you can't assume that this game's based off of the real-life story just because there's 4 kids missing, same thing as the real-life story. And a lot of different stories have 4 kids missing. But in this very specific story, there's 4 kids missing inside of a jungle/forest environment with a crashed plane, which signifies that this is the only scenario where this could actually happen.